Hi friends, you're watching Faint Signals from Vega. So today I wanted to talk about something I saw on Russell Brand's video channel, his podcast, and it was Karamo Brown, who is from Queer Eye. He seems like a very nice man, and he was talking about how to become a better man, whatever that means, or how to become a more loving man. That's probably more the case, which is very good, of course. But he was talking. There was one part where, and I've heard this before with different celebrities that talk about this issue. They talk about how we need to have positive thinking, and that this positive thinking and sort of like positive affirmations about ourselves will help us get what we want in life, and they'll help us be what we want. Now, I believe in that sort of in positive affirmations, like for me, who I suffer from depression, clinical depression sometimes, and it waxes and wanes, and so I know that sometimes I can get caught in patterns of negative thinking about myself, and the way I break out of that, of course, is to just stop thinking about myself and to do things for other people. That's the best way, I think, and that's different spiritual teachers have sort of said that the way you make yourself happy is to make other people happy, and I totally believe in that. But of course, when you have clinical depression, it's very tricky to sometimes to break out of some negative thinking, and to also to motivate yourself, because it's kind of like, I don't know if you are familiar with the clinical depression, but sometimes it feels like you're in a hole and you're sort of scrabbling there's mud walls and you're scrabbling to get out of that hole, and the mud is kind of slipping down, and so you're really not getting anywhere. Even though you want to get out of the hole, it seems like it's impossible. And that can go on for a while, and then it starts to get, and for some people it starts to get better, and for other people it can be really, really entrenched and can be so terrible for them that some people will take their life. They can't stand it anymore. And that even includes people that have they've been on medication, and medication can be very helpful and for limited periods. This is my personal opinion. I feel it can be. But anyway, it's something that is very difficult, and it's very personal for people. It's different for everybody, and some people have dreadful depression. Really, really dreadful. That's a very difficult thing, and of course it's hard for people to see that. It's not like you have a broken leg and everybody can see that. Anyway, but so what I'm saying is that I know what it's like. Sometimes I have to do some positive reinforcements of things to get away from the negative sort of almost like rumination, the negative sort of ruminations of different things, about myself. And sometimes that helps, and other times it may not, depending on what kind of depression I have. But generally speaking, I'm pretty functional, and I'm able to do a lot of things. But sometimes it takes some effort to sort of feel like I can, when I'm talking about when I'm having a particularly difficult bout of depression. But what I'm saying, I'm probably getting sidetracked here, but I wanted to explain a little bit about depression and stuff while I was at it, something about myself. But what I was saying about getting back to Karamo Brown and how he was talking about, that people need to say positive things to themselves, and then eventually, they'll break out of this cycle. And he sees himself as an example of that, because he used to take drugs, and he was in a very difficult place. And I think at one point he was suicidal. He had an abusive father and so forth. He's had a very difficult struggle, and being black, of course, in America makes it extremely difficult. So, hats off to him for being able to get to where he is, where he's fairly popular on this show, Queer Eye, and he has, I'd say he's probably got a big career in front of him, because he's very intelligent, he's attractive looking, and so forth. The thing is that this message that's put out there by people, and it's usually celebrities who will say things like to people, you hear it often, all you have to do is really want something and keep trying at it, keep doing it, and keep plugging away, and you will be successful. Now, I find that sort of like a dangerous kind of a message, because there, like, for example, just looking, say, at Karamo, if he wasn't tall and attractive looking, and if he didn't look like he did, and he wasn't intelligent and so forth, and charismatic, he probably would never have gotten on that show, Queer Eye. and he would not be popular, and it doesn't mean that he wouldn't be the same person he is right now, but he just wouldn't have gotten on that show. There are restrictions to this idea. Like, for example, that idea of The Secret that Oprah Winfrey used to put out, that like if you believe something, it will happen. And if it doesn't happen, it's because you didn't believe in it. That actually in some ways sort of shames people who are maybe stuck in in serious poverty, or they're stuck in a situation that they cannot change, and all the positive thinking in the world isn't going to change that situation for them. They might be able to some way escape it, but positive thinking isn't enough, particularly if you're, say, a black person or if you're a trans person. There are restrictions and social pressures and social discriminations and so forth, and government oppression, like structural racism and all of that, or in the case of Palestinians, apartheid and dreadful conditions for Palestinians. They're not treated as human. There's all these kind of things. And when people, celebrities, say things like that and put out this idea that all we need to do is have positive thinking, that sort of puts the onus, instead of looking at the root of a lot of these discriminations and oppressions, whether they're structural, whatever, and looking at neoliberalism as well. Instead of looking at some of these causes of what causes people to feel despondent or to get depressed and so forth, it's not looking at that, the causes. It's sort of treating these symptoms as if it's some sort of individual responsibility that we're going to have to snap out of negative thinking. Like, I could want to be, I don't want to be a ballerina, but I mean, like I can wish to be a ballerina all I want. Or I can wish to be, you know what I mean? And that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because I don't have the skills to do that. It's not going to happen because of my age. There's a whole lot of reasons why it's not going to happen, and all the wishing and positive thinking in the world and believing I could be a ballerina, it isn't going to happen. So it's sort of like, in the relationship to, say, The Secret, which was this book that sold a whole bunch of, made the person who wrote it very, very wealthy, I imagine, and it was pimped around all over the place in all these celebrity shows. I mean, it basically, it comes down to this: it's your responsibility individually to, if you don't believe in something, it isn't going to happen for you, and it's your fault.
The decision by the state to bombard the airwaves with effective propaganda is a form of disempowerment. A collective self-delusion, the insane positivism that reality is never an impediment to what we desire. You get it from Hollywood, from Oprah, from positive psychologists, from the Christian right. And it's all a lie.
And that's kind of, I'm not saying that Karamo in this interview, I'll see if I can actually find the little part where, I think the whole message is in there somewhere in this interview with Russell Brand, but I'll see if I can find the part where he sort of was saying that. But, when he sort of puts out this message that, it's ultimately, how we feel about things, how we think about things, and he says he does these positive affirmations every night about himself, which is great, and I do believe in, the mind is very powerful in you, but, there are limitations to the sort of things that can happen, even with those positive things. And I find that, I feel like, and I'm looking at this now in a general sense, I feel like this sort of message basically keeps the masses in this sort of state of that there isn't a structural problem. This message that is put out there by wealthy celebrities, right, who then become part of the oligarchy. They become part of the 1%, or they may already be the 1%, as in like Oprah Winfrey. Karamo, I'd say at this point, is quite wealthy, and he'll be very wealthy one day. But I feel like it puts out this message that, it puts out a weird idea of what success is, because, success isn't necessarily what he might, like what some people might think it is. being wealthy or famous or being the top of your field of, say, baseball or something, that might be somebody's idea of success. It's not my idea of success. My idea of success is anyone who cares about what's happening on the planet and cares about the vulnerable. And that means either humans or non-humans. And if you care about the vulnerable non-humans, then be vegan and educate others to be vegan. And if you care about humans, be anti-war and anti-imperialism and, be anti-racism and so forth. But actually actions are very important. That's my idea of success, of individual success, and being kind to others and being loving and just trying to make the world a little bit better before we leave. That's my idea of success. I don't know what, but this whole thing that is put out by celebrities who are often part of the 1% is in some ways almost like in this reinforcement of a narrative, almost like the reinforcement of the narrative that if you're poor, it's your fault. Now, I'm not saying that Karamo Brown is putting out that message. I think he seems like a kind person and a very, I think he really cares about people. But I think he's also being seduced by, in some ways, celebrity, and eventually he'll be in his own little bubble with all these other people in kind of like a God realm, what the Buddhists would call the God realm, where you kind of have everything and people are running around after you and so forth. And after a while, you can kind of completely lose yourself if you're in that situation. And the only way to go in some ways is to fall down, basically, because eventually you're not going to be appealing, and there's new celebrities coming out every month, really. So eventually people aren't going to be interested in you, but maybe you've made enough money in the time. You've got a limited period of time, particularly if you're a woman, because celebrity is so much about appearances when you're a woman. Anyway, but I'm getting off the track here, but I sort of feel like that this thing that keeps being put out there, and I've been watching this for a while and over the years and noticing this, all you have to do is believe, and if you don't believe, then it's not going to happen, is sort of like feeding into that whole thing. Instead of, it's pretending like there isn't a structural cause like neoliberalism or structural racism or something like that. There isn't a real basis, a real fundamental flaw in the way we're living and the way governments are functioning and so forth. The way society now is structured, and it favors certain races and not others and so forth. Favors white people and not other people. There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's heterosexism, that favors, like heterosexuals, it'll favor that, and other gender diverse people and trans people are sort of excluded, in some way. There's that constantly, in advertising on television and so forth. And so there's all sorts of things that are, barriers to people from different groups. And I wish that these people, when they become famous, sort of would look more deeply at that instead of putting out that tired old sort of dangerous narrative that ultimately it's the individual's narrative in their head, and what they, if they really want something, then it will happen for them. It's that sort of, I feel like that's a really unfortunate thing, which sort of shames people in a way, because you end up sort of going, oh, well, the reason I wasn't successful in this is because I just didn't want it badly enough, or I didn't believe that I could do it, and so forth. It's not helpful to people to have that sort of thing being put out there over and over again. And I think we really need to sort of push back on that narrative. I think it's a very unfortunate one, and you hear it over and over again, particularly when celebrities are receiving awards. And they'll sort of say things like, oh, now everybody out there, all you have to do is just believe in it and keep plugging away and it will happen. No, it won't. Not necessarily. Oftentimes it's a matter of complete luck, and it's a matter of genetics too. If you're born with this stereotypically attractive look that happens to be something that the media moguls like, and they promote you like a product. And when that's not in fashion anymore, they discard you like a product, like a used product, and so forth. A lot of it is luck, it's genetics, it's what race you are. I mean, how many, like, you can even see that in Hollywood. How many black people get the sort of, there's a very few get the sort of attention that all the white people do and get the roles and so forth. But who cares? I mean, Hollywood, who cares? It's just another industry that puts out propaganda about the war machine too, I mean, with CIA-approved scripting and stuff. I mean, that's a real thing. Military-approved scripting, military-industrial complex approved scripting. So it's just putting out the BS narrative about, America being the good, the bastion of all that's good, and there's the baddies and the goodies and so forth. Anyway, that was just something I wanted to comment about. It's no biggie. It's just something I've noticed now for some time that gets put out over and over again by celebrities. And when I see people like Karamo Brown, who I think seems like a nice person, and I like that, I think that Queer Eye franchise has actually been quite helpful for decreasing the discrimination against LGBTIQ people. But I really, really wish that people would stop saying that, because it's really, really unfortunate. Really, really unfortunate. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to say. Anyway, please subscribe if you like the content. Please click the like button. Please click the notifications bell, otherwise you don't receive notifications when a video drops. And always, if you feel like leaving comments, that's great, because I always enjoy reading them. So thanks so much for watching. My name's Trish Roberts. You're watching Faint Signals from Vega. Till next time, bye for now.